sometimes it's somebody else in your sphere. Like maybe there's a deal, and I'm sure you're like me. We have, buddies at community banks. My buddies over at South Star, for example, or my buddies at Vista. It's like, hey, this deal is not going to work, but you're in my close sphere, whether it's a personal referral from someone with, my friends, or if it's with a realtor, and you go, hey, this is not going to work, but I'm going to make a call for you. And I'm going to call, Jim or Larry or one of the guys over at South Star or Greg. I'm just using them as an example.
Greg Vesely, I know Greg.
Those guys are amazing.
Yes.
And they're so grateful for that opportunity.
Right.
But you're probably similar to me then, Russ, where you set it up. You set the expectation. You go, okay, listen, you don't meet this measurable, and here's why, but I believe it's going to work with so-and-so. Now, here's what you're going to expect, Mr. Borrower. Your rate's going to be a little higher. Probably going to be on an arm, and you're probably going to pay a point.
Right.
1% origination. And I want to make sure that works for you before I make that referral. Right. And then when you do, then it's already set up for our friends that we refer them to so that those expectations are set. And now you're doing the same thing with your realtors when maybe you ran into that challenge with your borrower.
That's right.
And how important is that?
It's very important.
Yeah.
And in fact, I can tell you I had a deal recently that was a big loan and a really great loan. And there was a guideline I completely missed. Or actually, I didn't miss the guideline. I looked for it, but I misread it.
Okay.
And
what was it? What was that scenario?
It was a capital gains income, and it was a jumbo. And I was running that deal through Chase. And I realized that the nature of the capital gain, I could not use the capital gains.
Even though they had an average of it.
Even though they had an average of it, I couldn't use it. And so I actually called, and he just retired, Keith Smith over at Prosperity Bank.
Golly, I told him, dude, don't retire. He goes, dude, it's retirement time.
I know, man.
Over at Prosperity.
Yeah, Keith's bailed me out a few times, but I said, Keith, I got a good deal for you. This guy's got great credit. He's got the income. It fits, big down payment. And in fact, it was a slightly better rate than I had the client locked at. So I called the client and said, look, it's not going to work, but here's a solution. And honestly, his realtor really appreciated that because I said, look, normally I'm left holding the bag and I got to find the solution, and you found it. And I'm like, I can't leave this guy without a solution here. So, and he got closed, and it was great. It was a great experience.
And those people stay in your sphere.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
Because they're still a referral source for you.
Yeah, and I stayed in the transaction. In fact, the client called me on several things and said, this is what they sent. Does this look fine? So I kind of acted as a consultant, so to speak, but it was great. It worked out.
Keith was one of the godfathers for many years. I remember when he was at Wells, and he was recruiting me at Wells, and he went over to Prosperity. And there's a great example. We have our friends that we compete against, because we would compete against Keith on normal deals.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, hey, if I don't get it, Keith, I want you to get it.
Right.
And you tell that to the client. Hey, if I don't get it, I want Russ to get it. And that's bound to happen, and it does happen.
That's right.
When we bump up against each other on a regular basis, but it's how you handle the integrity of that moment and of that situation.
Yes.
But going back to when you're referring a client out, they stay in your sphere.
They do. They do.
Really do.
And they'll come back to you because they'll remember you did the right thing, right? And you might say, look, I'm not making anything on this. I don't care. It's about you getting the problem solved and getting into this house if you really want to do this.
So this era about you and your wife, and how successful y'all have been in business, but also how you handle yourselves in your personal life. Who is it for you personally that, obviously your parents had a lot to do with who you are as a person and a human being, but what key players in your life help mentor you along, whether it was in the mortgage industry or whether it's through the ministries? Who are the key people that have really touched you, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, definitely my parents. My parents were really, raised us to have a, honest work ethic, a strong work ethic. But, I would say one of the people that I really consider just a major influence in my life is the preacher at my church, George Williams.
And which church is that?
It's Eastside Church of Christ.
Okay.
And George Williams is just such a man of integrity that I just admire him. And so for me, it's kind of been, we grew up with church being that kind of being the extended family. And so
Yeah.
a lot of people along the way in my church life, um, certainly I've had people in the work world with me that have influenced me. People like Rich Jefferson over at Network Funding.
Mm-hmm.
Rich is definitely someone I feel like has helped shape me into a better producer.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like Todd Curio and Mark Abernathy, who
Mm-hmm.
are strong producers,
I
run a
remember
great
Mark when he was at
business.
CTX for years, wasn't he? I'm trying to
I
remember where
think
he
that
was.
may be
Oh,
right.
no, Mark was with, but who was he with? He's been around
He was with a
forever.
bank
Which
before.
one was it? But those are high quality, high motor, but
Yeah,
high integrity guys.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely there's been lots of people along the way, even if they've been in my life for a short while,
Yeah.
that have really helped me in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm missing out people, but I would definitely say a lot of folks at my church that have been
Mm-hmm.
just great influences and great support for me.
Well, and the fact that your family had the opportunity that they did with the missionaries that helped get y'all over into a
Yes,
safe place, that was just the landing spot,
right,
and then it was up to your dad and your mom,
right.
with 4 kids, and then to basically be your rock and your foundation, but also your mentor. It started at home, and not all families have that.
No, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not. And
Mm-hmm.
and yet I'm amazed that people will still rise above that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm inspired by that when I
Mm-hmm.
see that.
And you see that also, like you said, with your church. Now, I think that it's compelling that the narrative for you is pretty clear that you're a man of faith, you're a man of integrity, and it plays into the role that you have at work, but also at home. But I would say, at the end of the day, you could crush this out for as long as you want to with the system that you have, with the team that you have, and with the mindset. What's your end game, and what are you doing from an investment standpoint to set yourself up where it's like, okay, in 5 years or 10 years or whenever that might be, I'll be ready to do like what our friend Keith Smith just did.
Yeah, I think properties, owning real estate is
Mm-hmm.
really a strong foundation for
Mm-hmm.
retirement. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think I want to do this maybe another 9 or 10 years.
Okay,
I'm 51 now, so
until you're 60,
yeah,
give or take.
something
Okay.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, I can say, hey, I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to move on to something else,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a career or just volunteer work.
Mm-hmm.
I want to definitely have a purpose, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I think
So you own real estate?
I own some real estate.
How many are they? Single family? Are they commercial? A combination of the two?
Well, we own our commercial building.
Okay.
And when I say own, I say that loosely. I mean, there is a loan on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we own, besides our house, we own a couple of other investment properties in Austin.
Single family?
Yes,
Mhm.
single family and a couple of condos.
Couple condos. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and hopefully in the long run, those will, give us some equity and
Mhm.
401k,
Yep.
and just some
Does network
personal
funding
investments.
offer like a match program on the 401k?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So you probably max that out, I would imagine.
We do max that out.
Mhm,
Yeah, for
mhm,
sure.
mhm.
Just try to take advantage of as much as we can.
Mhm.
That's right.
So you have the real estate, which that's the world that you know.
That's
right?
right.
And then you have the 401k, which of course, when you have a match, that's like free money. So like me, I do the same thing. And then what about any other managed portfolio money? Like, do you have like a financial advisor that y'all work with?
Yeah, yeah. In
Mhm.
fact, we've got a good friend that we work with who's at Slaughter Investments, Slaughter and Associates, Bob Tabor.
Okay.
Um,
And they can make some of the best referral sources too.
yeah, absolutely. They're
Yeah.
they're great. We've done a lot of business for their
Mhm.
clients over the
Mhm.
years. We've been working with Bob for 15, 20
Yeah.
years.
Mm-hmm.
And AJ Wagner over at what's his company called? We've done some stuff with them too,
Mhm.
and I'm blanking on the name of their
You're right.
investment house, but
Yep.
they're on Lamar.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and I just think, so many of us in our industry, when you have big years, they're not responsible enough to go, this isn't going to last,
Right.
or
Yes.
just, if you're putting 20% away or whatever a person's individual model is on saving, some people may only put 10 or 5 or nothing, right?
Right.
But when they have a big year, they're like, well, I'm going to actually spend that money. Now it's time for me to spend money on me instead of staying dedicated to their cause, which is I'm going to put 20% away, whether I'm making 10,000 or 100,000 or a million. Right.
Right.
And y'all, it sounds like y'all are really consistent in how y'all go about that.
Well, we definitely do it.
Mhm.
Again, it's one of those things of there's always a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Should I do better on some of that? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I try to take and give to my church? Absolutely.
So y'all tithe. Y'all are big into
for
tithing.
sure. For
Mhm.
sure. Yeah.
And that, just like with the coaching, that comes back 10x as well.
That's right.
With the tithing, we're not talking about the financial part of it, but just the emotional part of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that it disciplines you, and it also says, hey, I'm giving back to God
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of what he's given to me. Because really, at
Mhm.
the end of the day, it's not
Giving
my
us
money.
everything.
I mean, none of this is
You're
my
just borrowing it.
stuff. Yeah.
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
it really is owned by him anyway.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I see it.